Esteemed members, good evening, and thank you for joining us today. If you can hear me, just send a message on the chat. Right, thank you for the thumbs up. I can see that someone has confirmed. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for the feedback. And once again, I'd like to welcome you to today's session on leadership skills. And this is a session that has been happening together with the young pharmacists. We've been having a mentorship program in partnership with the 300 program, the young pharmacists with them. So for this session, we'll be having Newton Siele, who's going to be doing the presentation on the leadership skills. And along him, we'll also have Dr. Bethel Libert, who's also going to be supporting in this session. And also another team member to welcome Dr. Lee Marks and then welcome the speaker for the day. And I'd like to encourage you just before we start, this is going to be a session that you're required to engage with the speaker, share your opinions and ideas that you have in mind. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand in the chat section to just raise your questions. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Dr. Libert. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hezron. Good evening, esteemed colleagues and respected seniors. It's a pleasure to have you on board for tonight's session. Indeed, it's a collaboration, as Hezron has put it, between Philips Therapeutics Limited and Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya. It's exciting to have you on board just to explore more on leadership skills, a topic that will be facilitated by our speaker for tonight, that is the CEO for Philips Therapeutics Limited, that is Newton Siele, who will be taking us through the session. In between, we'll have a commercial break for 5 or so minutes, where my colleague Mary Kungu will be able to facilitate that, and then be able to proceed and close the session. Please free to drop your questions in the comment section. Hezron, together with I, will be able to facilitate that, to read out the questions to be responded to. And I believe at the end of this session, you'll have learned something that you'll put into practice in your respective areas of pharmacy practice, just to better who you are as a leader. At this point, allow me welcome the facilitator for tonight, Newton Siele. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bethwell. Maybe for ease of the connectivity, I'll also remove my camera. Just confirm that you can be able to hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm just going to share the screen in a minute. Just confirm that you can also be able to see the screen.
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and especially for the team that we started with this mentorship series. It's really been a journey. I think we actually started the sessions by talking about the different mentorships that you can have in coaching, and over time we've sort of navigated talking about the different I would say skills and personalities, and we talked about mindset. I think in the last discussion we talked about growth versus a fixed mindset. And so today we sort of are building on that. And so for those of us that are joining us today, don't feel like you'll be left out. I'm sure Dr. Bethel, Dr. Hezron will be more than happy to just chip in. And where there's going to be a link with what we have done before, you'll be able to see that correlation. We're really sort of shifting now to leadership, but it's because when we started this mentorship, we really wanted to also provide a platform where whether you are starting in as an intern pharmacist or you are moving from your internship into your employment post-internship, or you're moving from your post-employment, post-internship into a first position or job that you're getting in, or even for those that are actually being promoted, there is something that you can be able to pick up on, and we hope that that's one of the things that we will anchor on. So we're going to be talking about leadership, but I sort of want to frame today's talk, and we will have a very simple case study that we'll also be discussing at the end on one of the models that we teach that is known as Why Should Anyone Be Led by You? And there are two books that we'll reference. I'll ask Dr. Bethel just take note so that we can share those two books for those that would want to be able to read. How do you grow up in leadership? So the way I want to look at it today before we go into our case study is to look at ideally where would we want anybody that wants to get into leadership to be, and then where don't we want them to be, so that you can be able to contrast the two and hopefully be able to pick what is it that if you are going to be getting into leadership you don't want to have. How can we become more effective as leaders and developers of leaders? What I want us to remember is two things actually that are very important. Number one is that in today's environment, when I say today's environment is where we are right now, it's not like 25 years ago. A leader is expected to be situational. And it's also with the understanding that what is often required of a leader will also be influenced by the situations that they're going through, whatever it is that they are managing. And we look at the case study for one of a young pharmacist that we're going to be discussing. So when you find yourself in that position, that how do you navigate so that you can still be able to be successful regardless of the situation? So situational sensing, and we will see that is one of the things that a leader is expected to have. The second one that is very important is that leaders in today's age and time are also expected to be non-hierarchical, right? And people have this misconception that when you occupy a senior position in an organization that you automatically can be termed as a leader. We will see that that's not really the case. And whereas there is a relationship between hierarchy, and in the medical industry, we really respect our senior colleagues, we do not want to have that misconception that hierarchy equals leadership. That relationship itself is contingent and therefore is subject to chance. So not all people that make it to the top with leadership skills can be termed as being leaders. However, we also do know that there are people who have very good political acumen. There are those who have a very strong personal ambition. There are even some, just by the fact that the person that owns the business or the person that is leading is well known to them, they also get to be appointed. And I know even those of us who are here know some of those appointments. It's not unusual. It happens both in public, it also happens in the private sector. The other thing that is important, and we will see this when we begin to talk about the different types of leadership, is relational. Put simply, you cannot be a leader without followers. And so leaders must know how to manage this relationship while ensuring that they excite the followers to become great performers. What I hope I can be able to convince you is that you can still be a chief pharmacist. You can have people that report to you by virtue of the organogram, but it doesn't mean that you are leading them, right? And we'll see what that difference is. What I hope I can be able to convince you is that it's important not just to be the person that sits at the top of the organogram, but the people who also people love to be led by, and that is the difference. So which brings me to one of the things that we'll be anchoring on, and that is on work done by Dr. John Maxwell on leadership. And there are these 5 positions, right? As I said, today we are only going to be focusing, and my core my co-facilitators here, Dr. Hezron and Dr. Alibert, will focus on the first 2. and that's positional leadership, and then we'll talk about permissional. But it's because I also want to convince you that unless you move into permissional leadership, then already as it is, your journey of becoming a leader might really be to a false start. So level 1 is positional, and we see that here people follow you because they have to. It's because you, at your door, you have the sign that says chief pharmacist, or it says head of department, or it says head of faculty, or it says a medical superintendent, whatever it is that position is, people follow because of that position. But we will see that you want to move onto permissional leadership, and this one is relationship anchored. Here, people follow you because they want to. The difference, remember, is that in level 1, they follow you because they have to. In level 2, they follow you because they want to. That's what we'll focus on today. But in as much as I think over the next leadership classes, we'll talk about the other levels, it's just for you to note that once you succeed as a permissional leader, which means that people are following you because they want to, then you're likely to be able to grow to level 3, which is called the production level. And here, people follow you because of what you have done for the organization. They actually see the difference that you're making to the organization. And beyond that, then you have level 4, which is people development, and people follow you because of what you have done for them. You now begin to develop the next leaders. And of course, the last one is called the pinnacle. And here people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. By the way, it's very rare to get to the pinnacle. If you think about it, it's that 1%. And we only often can count with our 5 fingers the people that we know that can easily be termed as being a pinnacle leaders. Very good example, of course, is Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama. So I want us to remember, and I'm going to be diving into the level 1, which is very important, that in level 1, as I said, it's purely anchored on position. And position is a very good place to start. We will see that. It's a boss position versus a leader. So here, often, people follow you because you're the boss. And we will see why it's dangerous to actually get anchored or to put up tents at that level. Level 2, which is what we're going to be focusing on as the ideal one, is what we call the permissional level. And as I said, people follow you because they want to. It's characterized by good relationships within the workplace. People, as we say often, this quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. So a level 2 leader tends to be one that also practices those things like empathy, coaching, authoritative, democratic. So they begin to have these leadership styles that really bring everybody on board. And so people then, as we have seen, become very enthusiastic and they really want to be able to work together. By the way, it's not surprising that those then who move from level 2 go to level 3, which we call also the big more, where you have this momentum. Not only do people love being led by you, people want to get things done. And so in level 3, you have productivity that begins to increase. It begins to get your organization delivering on the objectives. They're able to meet their bottom line. They're able to reduce on the risks. They're able to mitigate against kappas that you have. And I want you to remember, because the case study we will be discussing about is actually a challenge that a young pharmacist is unable to be able to grow to that level. So as I said, I wouldn't focus on this 4 and 5, but I want us to remember that. Okay, so as I said, position is a starting place for every level of leadership. In fact, it's the bottom floor and foundation upon which leadership must be built. Everybody starts at the positional level because it's where you first get appointed, you get your letter, you pass the interview, you're now told that you've been taken in as a leader or you've been promoted for that matter. And there's nothing wrong with having a position of leadership. When you receive it, in fact, it's also because people have identified that there's something about you that deserves potential, right? They see a potential in you as a leader. So let's talk about level 1 leadership, which we are calling positional. And as I said, it's a great place to visit, but you don't want to live there. What's the upside of position? As I said, it's usually given to people that have shown potential. And usually the person in authority believes that the new leader has some degree for leading. So you've been given because somebody believes in you. That's very important. It also means that the authority has been recognized. Because remember, as a positional leader, you're the one who will probably determine the duty roster. You'll probably do assessment of people. You'll do their performance evaluation. You'll do their appraisals. You'll recommend people, for example, for review of their remuneration. So there's a lot that is going to be anchored on you when you're still at that position. It's also an invitation for you to grow as a leader. And we usually say, of course, that whoever who much is given, much is expected, or much is required. I want to emphasize that a leadership position allows potential leaders, I would say here potential pharmacists, to shape and define their leadership. And so when you first become a leader, you also begin to set up this page on how you are going to be known. Are you going to be seen as a tyrant, and we have seen share of enough tyrants, or are you going to be seen as a team builder? Do you want to come down on people hard, or do you want to lift them so that they can actually be able to grow? And by the way, we will not necessarily, list examples here, but it's almost day and night when you see people who get stuck on leadership or positional leadership versus those who are able to move into permissional leadership. So which brings me then, and I want us to remember this because it will be important for our case study discussion. What then are the downsides of positional leadership? Now, for somebody who then, decides to stay or put up tent or anchor themselves on positional leadership, it can also be misleading because sometimes, remember, positions will always promise more than it can deliver. And it's not something that you want to be in. People who rely on position to lead, meaning the title that they have on their door or on their card or at the bottom of their signature, often also devalue people. And when you rely on this alone, you don't place value on people. So their position and title is more important to them than the work that they do. And so they will want to be treated, for example, as a king. They'll want a certain way in which they are addressed, even in the email. They'll want, when a meeting is being set up, there's a way they should be set up. They're the ones, as I said, they will behave like, let me put quotes and quotes, small kings. We also know that positional leaders feed on politics. And so when leaders value position over ability to influence, the environment of the organization, the team, is usually very political. So they're the ones who tend to build silos because they want to be told what's happening. They'll have people who sometimes they're perceived as being informers within the organization. That's why you find people who sometimes can be perceived as being sacred cows within a team. How come this person never gets this particular shift? How come this person usually gets their off on the days that they prefer? How come they can call and sometimes they can say, I'm not feeling well and nothing will happen to them? But when somebody else calls, it's a very different story. So you will often get to easily see a leader who is positional and the ones who feed on politics. But also, leaders who are positional place rights over responsibilities. They develop this sense of entitlement. And so they expect people to serve them rather than looking for ways to serve their people. And by the way, usually we have seen in this kind of forums and in discussions, a leader who will not even look at any opportunity to build their people. And when there are opportunities, for example, the organization provides a budget, let's say, for people to travel to go and do a short course or get supported, you find that they hog those particular opportunities and they really want people to struggle before they can even give them. And so the difference, as I said, between a leader who is positional and one who is permissional is like day and night. Usually a story is told, and I don't know how many of you remember this, but when I started my life as a medical rep in the late 90s, we used to have one hospital. It was a big hospital, actually, still is big. But I remember the head of pharmacy at that particular time used to be the person who on Fridays, they would lock the main pharmacy where they used to store, especially some of the high value items, including the DDAs, and he would actually leave with the key. So if there was an emergency, regardless of what time, they had to call him, the head of pharmacy. He would then come with the key open and give the person who he has left in charge and then lock it again. I can tell you for a fact, now in hindsight, I can almost definitely say that that was a positional leader, right? You cannot even trust the people that you have left. What are the other downsides of a positional leader? It's often quite lonely, by the way. And usually, in fact, we say that phrase, it's lonely at the top, is usually uttered a lot by positional leaders. because they fear that people are going to take their positions. They sort of build these walls around themselves. They want to guard their position. So they will make sure nobody else can have access to people that are above him. Everybody has to go through him. And if there's anything that needs to be done, it has to go through him. And that's why we say usually it's very lonely for positional leaders. They also, by the way, remain position. They get branded and stranded. Whenever people use their position to lead others for a long time and fail to develop genuine influence, they become branded as positional leaders. And what I've found interesting, and this is so true, I couldn't agree more with Dr. Maxwell. If you want to know a place where there are positional leaders, look at the turnover. And I'm sure most of you are very familiar with this terminology. We normally say that people don't leave an organization. They leave, in quote unquote, bad leaders. And so because we know that people quit people, not companies, where you have a high turnover, very likely, and I'm saying like more than 90% chance that you have positional leaders within that organization. And so it's not surprising that positional leaders are also people who receive people's least and not their best. People will not go above and beyond because why? They are led by a positional leader. I want us to remember this because it's going to be very important in our case study. Now, I'm sure most of you are asking, so Newton, how does one then move, or how do you begin to move to level 2? How do you begin to remove this coating that can, it can get you trapped in level 1 on leadership? And it's important, by the way, to be very honest. Number one is that if you want to move to level 2, then you have to realize that titles are not enough. So simply because you have a title before you, or as I said, at your signature, or it's one that you have at the door, whether you're a chief pharmacist, head of faculty, head of department, head of casualty, head of strategy, head of marketing, it doesn't matter what it is. You have to remember that titles are ultimately empty. It is who you are and the work that you do that really is important. The people that you serve. Number two, people, not position, are your biggest valuable assets. Put people first, not the positions. And regardless of whichever organization that you work in, the people that you found in that organization, they are still your biggest assets. The people that you hire to deliver within that particular department, whether it's a pharmacy, it's a hospital, it's whatever it is that you're leading, they are the most important assets. And by the way, we begin to also understand that permissional leaders know that they don't have all the answers. And so, unlike positional leaders who are afraid to show that they are weak, a permissional leader will say, look, on this particular area, can I get people that can also give us a much more better way to approach it? Because you know that you can never have all the answers. You cannot move from positional leadership if you're not willing to carry others with you. And so when you begin to get the team that is with you and they actually join you, you also begin to move from being a positional leader to being a permissional leader, right? And so in terms of just a guidance, if you want to be able to effectively move from positional leadership, and I usually like this first part, please don't ever forget to thank the people that gave you the opportunity. In fact, I always say the best way you can be able to show them that you're the right person and show them that you're grateful is by really moving as fast as you can to being a permissional leader. Dedicate yourself to growth. And I think because we are here talking about mentorship and growth and sharpening yourself, I also want to emphasize that you're only as good as a leader as how well you sharpen yourself. You cannot at any one time assume that you've reached simply because you have this title. And by the way, as I said, most of the people that I've seen that end up completely sort of jeopardizing the opportunity is the ones who feel like they have reached, right? The other thing about moving from level 1 or positional leadership to permissional is that you have to define your leadership. And I'm hoping that that's what we'll also do as we begin to go into our case study. We've looked at the different styles of leadership. So who are you? What is your style? How do you want to get people to do what you want them to do? What are you best in? Which leadership styles do you need to probably inculcate or sharpen amongst yourself? There are people who are very good in giving orders, but do you need to build a bit more of listening and therefore be a bit more democratic in your leadership style? Do you need to be more of a pace setter? Do you need to be more of a coach? All those are things that you have to consider. And so you begin to also shift from position to potential, and you stop focusing on titles. Stop focusing and saying that, you know, you have to address me as so and so. Remember, I am so and so. That is my title. Please address me correctly. Those who do that, as I said, are, you know, they are tainted on the positional place, right? They cannot move. Begin to shift from rules to relationships. Initiate contact with your team members. Avoid using your title. Learn to say also that I don't know. You can actually learn. And find a leadership coach. Find a leadership coach. Now, before we quickly come and wrap up, I'd like to request Dr. Libea and Dr. Hezron to help me on this case study. It's a very simple case study, by the way, and as I said, it has absolutely no relevance or relationship to anybody. I just came up with this, I promise you. Dr. Rayleigh, very young pharmacist, has recently been appointed as a pharmacy in charge of a level 4 hospital. The hospital has 2 outpatient pharmacies and 1 inpatient pharmacy. The previous head of the pharmacy recently exited to pursue further studies, and so Dr. Rayleigh didn't even have time to be able for a handover or to get to even understand about the institution. The pharmacy has a team of 8 pharm techs, 2 pharmacist interns, and 1 pharm tech intern. The hospital management has expressed concern on a number of challenges they have faced with the pharmacy, from a culture of late reporting to work, unclear variances which have been flagged in audit, and a recent finding of significant expiries valued at $500,000 shillings in the last financial year. Now, there's been a number of anonymous reporting with staff implicating others on theft. Although investigations have not been conclusive, one staff has been suspended, the senior pharm tech who was heading the affected outpatient pharmacy. Dr. Rayleigh has been tasked by the hospital CEO to build not only a functional team, but also ensure that delivery of the KPIs within 6 months and correction of the culture of the pharmacy team. Very simple, Dr. Hezron, Dr. Libea. We need to understand what would be the advice that our class today is going to give to Dr. Rayleigh in terms of prioritizing. What would be those 3 things? And what pitfalls would we advise Dr. Rayleigh to really be careful as he begins to focus on rebuilding the team? So back to you, Dr. Libea and Dr. Hezron.
Thank you so much, Newton, for that informative session, and for the case study as well. To the participants, please drop the responses for the 2 questions in the comment section. We have, what 3 things would you advise Dr. Rayleigh to prioritize as he settles down? And the second question is, what pitfalls should Dr. Rayleigh be careful about while focusing on rebuilding the team? Remember, Dr. Hezron, while introducing the session, he had mentioned that it's an interactive session. And this is the point where we get to interact with the content that has been shared so far. And that you do by posting in the comment section your responses. Remember, there is no wrong or right answer. It's an engaging session, an informing session. So please feel free to drop what you think about this case study in the comment section. Drop the point in the comment section. And let's have an interactive session. Let us have an interactive session. Feel free to drop the next 1 or 2 minutes before we proceed to review the case study and the responses. What 3 things would you advise Dr. Rayleigh to prioritize as he settles down in the new role to have a turnaround in the pharmacy? What 3 things would you advise if you are in his position or her position? What would you have done? What would you have done? Please feel free to drop in the your responses in the comment section. What pitfalls should Dr. Rayleigh, on this case, if you were to fit in his or her shoes, what pitfalls would you be careful about while focusing on rebuilding the team? Please feel free to drop your comments, your responses in the comment section. Thank you so much for those who are dropping comments in the comment section. I see Dr. Kenyato says informative. Thank you. Luke Taro says wonderful presentation. We have Philemon Zoen saying well done for the quality presentation. Thank you. Ivan Mwano saying educative. Tim Koitul saying informative. Boris Ndulut saying great presentation. Aviona Kevut saying wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Mercy Okwisia, who is saying Dr. Riley should prioritize. Dr. Riley should prioritize frequent meetings with the team to point out the challenges and way forward agreed on as a team. Thank you so much, Dr. for that response. Dr. Deborah Mutua says, I think that if Dr. Raleigh was to model the traits of pinnacle leadership for the reporting to work hours, they could take on the role of leadership by example. Thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Janet Kabira says teamwork, discipline, and integrity. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Anna Jemtai says proper documentation, security by putting up CCTV, setting clear responsibilities. Thank you so much. Thank you for the comments that are trickling in. Keep them coming. Dr. Dolphin Kerage says, number one, to establish a clocking in and clocking out system. Thank you so much, Daktari. Geoffrey Mwai says, staff culture and cohesion, improve inventory management to deal with the theft. And thirdly, rewards and sanctions instituted. Thank you so much. Peter Gadhi says, prioritizing discipline, that is time and theft, and departmental leadership. Thank you so much. Kipkwech Dennis says, rewards. Laban saying, great presentation. Thank you. Dr. Lily Njoroge says, number one, have open and honest conversation to understand the challenges experienced by the team. Secondly, define his short-term and long-term objectives and action plan. And thirdly, do an RCA on the expiries and audit findings. Thank you so much. Samuel Okelo says, put CCTV and more training. We have Frida Ndungi says, do a stock take and emphasize on FIFO and FIFO, that is the stock control measures. We have Dr. Damaris Gishinga says, delegate specific duties to each members and initiate one-on-one meetings to see progress, say on a frequency of every month or monthly. Thank you so much. Quite a number of comments coming in. Thank you so much. You're an active class. That is really, really commendable. Thank you. Thank you so much. Richard Ochieng says, Dr. Riley should encourage teamwork for the first months, hands-on management, discipline, and cyclic counting done by all members. Thank you so much. Mark says to prioritize. Number one, leading by example in the arrival and leaving time. Number two, properly defining tasks and roles. And number three, proper staff engagement. Thank you so much. Patrick Wesonga said he should be a good listener and create good relationship. Dolphin Kerage says use a weekly running inventory rotation involving all staff. Those are very, very good responses. Thank you so much. It points to the fact that we've been listening and you're a very active class. Thank you. Thank you so much for the responses that you've pointed out or you've shared. Hand over back to you, Newton, even as you proceed with the case.
Yeah, I totally agree, Dr. Bethwell, and I just want to pick on one comment and then and I thank everybody that has really given in their input. We'll try and unpack in a minute, but there's something that has caught my eye. It is a comment from Mercy. I'm just trying to catch it. If I'm not wrong, I'll just try and paraphrase. Mercy says it's quite it's quite intriguing, but very challenging in terms of practice. And it's interesting, Mercy, and I believe you also speak on behalf of many people, because sometimes we talk about these things that we need to practice in leadership, and then we feel like sometimes it is a lot or the burden is high. But I can tell you, and I'm sure here, if we were to ask people the stories that they have for pharmacies that they have inherited that were running into losses, pharmacies was a very high incidences of theft. I think myself and Bethwell, we work very closely with a number of pharmacies where we do coaching and training, including in-pharmacy training in some of the instances. And I can tell you, when I look at the price of having a dysfunctional team at the pharmacy, or having a team that is much more prone to stealing, or a team that is not engaged and not motivated, then you might as well, in my opinion, really think of closing that business. And unfortunately, that's a reality. So we don't sometimes correlate the way in which that team is led with the results that you get, because nobody, to the best of my knowledge, starts, even in a public institution like in Dr. Rayleigh's case, they need, or in this case, a level 4 hospital, they need to be able to actually get those returns so that they can sustain the institution and, of course, be able to make sure that other people can benefit. So it's important that we look at it from that perspective. I want to address, just introduce the topic, and then I'll quickly hand over for the commercial break and to say what we are hoping, and I'm hoping that it's going to be able to answer part of what um, we need to guide Dr. Rayleigh, is that all of us are in agreement that Dr. Rayleigh needs to begin to look at how does he, quickly probably move from just positional to permissional leadership, bearing in mind the urgency that he has. And I appreciate the responses that you have given. Keep in mind, I want you to keep in mind that if we only think at it from a pharmacist perspective, saying that there's an issue with stocks, I need to do an analysis, I need to do a stock review. It's a very important component of the solutions that Dr. Rayleigh needs to incorporate. But Dr. Rayleigh is inheriting a team of people. So I want you to remember also that one of the things that he needs to diagnose is how have these people been led and how do I want to lead them so I can get them to do what I want to be done. And so sometimes we forget that if you focus only on the systems and you forget about the people who will actually operate those systems that you're talking about, the root cause analysis, the FIFO, all those things that you want to get done have to be done by people. So let's look at what does it mean to lead by permission. Leaders in level 2, or what we call permissional level, one of the things that is different about them is that they make people within the team feel cared for, included, valued, and trusted. The benefit you get is that people begin to work together in that particular scenario. And if you look at the upsides of permissional leadership, is that it makes work more enjoyable because in level 2, the focus shifts from me as an individual to we. And remember, as we've seen in Dr. Rayleigh's case, there is no way that it's going to be there all the time. I've seen people say, I'll put CCTV camera, I can be listening, and I always wonder if you're asleep, for example, because you have to sleep, even as the head of pharmacy, will you wake up at night at 2 a.m. just to check on the CCTV camera to see if everything is okay? It's not possible. You have to trust the people that you have left at the pharmacy that they will do what needs to get done and they know what is expected of them. And so the other beauty of permissional leadership is that it actually has a much more higher energy level. When you spend time with people you know and like, they give you energy. And good relationship creates energy giving people's interaction. It also, by the way, enhances performance. And I must say, at least in my lifetime, I do know of a very good friend of mine, a pharmacist who has been able to really get a team that is so cohesive. And every time I meet him, he's able to tell me how the team is really focusing on what needs to get done. Rarely have I sat down and he tells me how either staff are stealing or he has so many variances. In fact, the only thing when we have trained that particular team is about how they can be able to grow in terms of their profitability while making sure they're delivering on the expectation for the organization. So is it possible? Yes. The other benefit that you have in permissional leadership is that it opens up channel of communication. So if you think about Dr. Rayleigh as a young pharmacist, he needs to be able to not only listen to the people, but he needs to also listen to them because they might also understand what could be the problems. What could have led to that significant expiry of $500,000 shillings? And could it have been prevented? What has been the historical performance when it comes to expiries? So when you look at permissional leadership, and what then Dr. Rayleigh would need to do, and I like because somebody did highlight this, he has to first connect with the team. Because, first connect with himself and then connect with the team also. Because the way the relationships work is that you must know yourself in order to also be able to lead others. Dr. Rayleigh also needs to develop a people-oriented leadership style because permissional leaders don't rely on rules to lead people. And as I said, rules are good. They are good for management, but they don't do so well when it comes to leadership because you need to know that the people that you have left in that particular pharmacy when you're away know what needs to get done. They will follow what is expected. And even if they need to come up with a solution in case of an emergency, they will not look for you. They will know what needs to be done. But of course, the other thing is important here. We are also saying that Dr. Rayleigh needs to practice the golden rule. And the golden rule says, treat others as you would want them to treat you. Make everyone feel respected. Dr. Rayleigh needs to also be the chief encourager of the team. I'm sure that the team must be going through a very tough time, because if they then presented a variance, they had expiries of 500,000. They have one of their team members who is senior being on suspension. It cannot be something that you can say gets the team to be motivated. And so Dr. Rayleigh finds himself in a situation where he needs to be able to still encourage the team, of course, making sure that they do the right thing, but they know that should you also do the wrong thing, there are consequences for that. That's why we say that a good leader must also be able to balance between care and candor. Care because you want the team to know that you actually value them. You want to understand what are the challenges that they are facing. For example, is it an issue of budget? Is it an issue of availability? Are they getting stockouts? Are they getting a lot of unserviced prescriptions? How can you be able to help them? But at the same time, understand that you need to be honest and practice candor, so that even when things are not right, the team also know that, look, we cannot move in this direction because we have key performance indicators that have been given by the board. We're not delivering on those ones. We've had this expectation in terms of this particular pharmacy as a revenue stream because it supports the organization. We're not delivering on that one. We could have met our revenue expectation. However, because we had these expiries, we had a dip by this value. So the team also understand what then is the expectation. I want to talk about one thing before I hand over to Dr. Bethwell for a commercial break. Dr. Rayleigh, if we're using him as an example, needs to also focus on the value of each person within the team. And because we say that in level 2 leadership, it is relationally driven. Relationships are so key. You value and respect everyone that you work with. And even when there is a war, the leader in permissional level takes the front line. But when there's a celebration, the leader in permissional level takes a back seat and allows the team to actually get the recognition. And by the way, I'm sure you were asking Newton, but there are these leaders who everybody does the work. Then when it comes to the recognition, they're the ones who will go and receive the trophy. As I said, that is already a positional leader. Okay. What you can also see is that Dr. Rayleigh needs to nurture trust. He needs to be able to build trust within the team. In my opinion, part of what could be contributing to all these issues they're having is that people don't trust each other. Of course, it doesn't mean that there might not be one or two employees who might actually be implicated. But it's important, as I said, until you find somebody guilty, you will first trust them. But they also know that you're putting in place mechanisms where if they are found not to be adhering, then there are consequences for that. So trust is a foundation of permission. If you have integrity with people, you develop trust. The more trust is developed, the stronger the relationship. I believe the much more easier it will be for Dr. Rayleigh to also be able to manage. So I'd like to pause and hand over to Dr. Bethel and Dr. Hezron. I'll come up and do the wrap up after the commercial break. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Newton. Thank you so much. Please feel free to drop in your questions even as we take a commercial break. And after the commercial break, Ezra will be able to read them out, and then Newton will respond to them even as we come to a close of this session. So for the next 5 minutes, I would like to welcome one of my colleagues. She's called Mary Kungu from one of the companies that distributes or is under Philips. That is Organon, and to present to us some of the brands that is under Organon. We could be interacting with it at facilities. Just a reminder of the brands and the products that are under Organon. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Becker, for the opportunity. Thank you to SK for the opportunity to empower and upskill the audience. Also, thank you to Newton for the enlightening conversation on leadership skills. I'd like to share a presentation briefly. My name is Miku. I work for Philips Therapeutics, handling organ products. And today we'll have a brief discussion on management of allergic rhinitis when accompanied by nasal congestion. So Bethel, allow me to share. Oh, sorry, you can't hear me.
We can hear you now. I think you are
Oh,
breaking
sorry.
a couple. Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, now you can hear me well.
Yeah.
All right. I was introducing myself. My name is Mary Kongo. I work in Philips Therapeutics, handling organon products. And today I wanted us to have a brief discussion on management of allergic rhinitis when accompanied by nasal congestion. So Dr. Bethwell, you'll allow me to share my slide briefly.
All right. Hezron, you can have the opportunity.
Sorry?
Yes, it should be okay.
Just shortly, Hezron is sorting it out.
All right. Before that is sorted, I want to thank PSK for the opportunity to empower and upskill the audience, and also to Newton Siele for the enlightening conversation on the leadership skills discussion we just had.
Can now
Allergic
proceed.
rhinitis, I can proceed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Allergic rhinitis is a growing burden globally, and of course, it goes to impact productivity, the quality of life, and also sleep. You'll find that most patients often report nasal congestion as the most troublesome symptoms. Can you see my screen, Dr. Bethel?
Not
No, we
yet.
can't see. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm trying to share it. I seem to be having, my apologies on that, seem to having such small challenge in sharing. Hello, Dr. Bethel?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm having a challenge on sharing my presentation on Erinase. I'm so sorry for that.
Bethel, I'm happy to come up to wrap up. Mary can send you her presentation, and then you can come back to her.
Yeah, sure. As you wrap up, I think there's a request if you could put up the case study.
Okay. I've actually also posted on the WhatsApp wall. Just confirm that it's clear, because I also thought it would be good for people to see. I'll post up again the case study.
Okay. I think we'll proceed even as we sort out with Mary the presentation.
Yeah. So, sorry. Yeah. So I'll start here so that we can come up and wrap up. And I must again say thank you so much for the great suggestions that you have given. As I said, it's a very typical challenge, by the way. But if you also think about it, Dr. Rayleigh has, I would say, a number of problems that he needs to be able to deal with. And based on what we have discussed, here we do not know exactly what is Dr. Rayleigh's leadership style. And the question, of course, would be, what would he need, for example, to be able to effectively manage or navigate. And so if somebody asked me, I would suggest also three things. Number one is that obviously the hostel is worried that there could be laxity by the team, because I can see that there was a mention by the CEO that people report late, or there's a culture of reporting late. So you find sometimes people don't come in at the time that it's supposed to. Now, that obviously is not just a culture, but also laxity. So there's some complacency that has come into the team, and usually in that case, in as much as people find it difficult, it also means that the leader has to be autocratic. I saw somebody had suggested that they need to have a clock in and a clock out. So again, maybe Dr. Rayleigh would need to work with HR to make sure that people are very clear in terms of the reporting times, and of course, as and when they're supposed to come in on the shifts. However, in terms of the challenge that Dr. Rayleigh has to manage, especially some of the staff who have been implicated, as I said, it's mixed, because there are those who could be guilty here, there are those who could actually be innocent. So he also needs to take an approach that is able to encourage those who are innocent to be more vigilant, and those who are guilty, of course, there has to be actions or consequences for that. So I'm going to go to this level 2, and I think as we had talked about the upside and the behaviors that are required, I'm sure some of you are wondering, okay, Newton, we hear you and we see that Dr. Rayleigh, for him to be effective, he definitely needs to be in level 2 or permissional leadership. Could there be downsides? And I'm sure some of you already would be expecting this. Yes, of course, I think every level would have its own upsides and downsides. It will not necessarily be a smooth ride all the way for Dr. Rayleigh. The problem sometimes with permissional leadership is that people sometimes can appear to be too soft for some people. And so caring for people may appear soft to some people, especially by autocratic leaders, and that's why they might find it very, very difficult. By the way, if you find that your leadership style is autocratic by nature, you're used to giving instructions, pushing, and sort of getting people to toe in the line, and I have a very good friend who is very good in this, then they find it difficult, because permissional leadership forces you to have a slightly softer side about yourself. But also we have seen that leading by permission can sometimes be frustrating for achievers. And I must say, people who we term their leadership style as pace setters. Pace setters, they're the ones who they want to get everything running. They are almost perfectionists, right? And the challenge with the perfectionists, or people who we say are high achievers and want to get things done right now, they don't want to slow down for anything. But as I said, when you're dealing with people, especially adults, by the way, you don't really have a choice. And so the idea here is not, again, to become too relational so that you lose sight of the primary goal, but at least you have to have something that thaws in you for you to relate to the people. Why do I feel like it's important for Dr. Rayleigh as a young pharmacist to also bond? Because these are people that you're going to be working with and you're going to be leading anyway. And so you might as well take time to be able to understand them and know what gets them to tick, what gets them to feel motivated. What are the things that you can be able to do? I think it's important because by the time Dr. Rayleigh begins to then effectively roll out his leadership style, he will have won the people over, as I said, through permissional leadership. Right? It doesn't mean that as a permissional leader, you might not be taken advantage of. Yes, you can be taken advantage of. But as we said earlier, you have to know how to balance between care and candor so that you can distinguish, because somebody will call you and tell you, oh, I'm not feeling well today. Can somebody cover for me? And because you're being nice and being permissional, you'll say yes, of course, wishing you a quick recovery. But when you begin to see the person now calls again the second and third time, of course, you know that they are taking advantage of that. And so even as you build relationships in level 2, you will always find that there are 4 kinds of people. The people we call takers, and those who leverage on the relationship to better themselves, but not you or anyone else. They will use your influence to grow. You have to be careful about those kind of people. And then we have developers, the people who leverage the relationship in a positive way, bettering both themselves and you. I always believe as a permissional leader that you really want to have more developers. And then we have those that we call acquaintances, right? And those are people who live off the relationship with you, but they'll never do anything about it. They hang around, they wait for something good to come, content to live off others' success, but they never take responsibility for them to grow themselves. And by the way, these people never grow themselves, right? They never get to move in any case. And then there are those who are friends. They'll enjoy the relationship with you, returning your goodwill and never taking unfair advantage. So I would say developers and friends are the kind of people that you want to work with. And by the way, if you have those ones in your team, you're also likely to be much more successful, much more successful. On the downside, even as I wrap up, permissional leaders also requires openness to be effective. And so to develop authentic relationships on permissional level, you need to be authentic. You must be able to admit your mistakes. And some people struggle with this. They need to know that you also have blind spots like everybody else and that you are not perfect. And the other thing is that leadership is difficult for people who are not naturally likable. There are those who they walk into a meeting, they cannot greet you, they cannot ask you, how was your day? How is your night? How is home? How is everybody? They just get straight to business. And so when you have people who are, they find it difficulty to be naturally likable, they don't have time for chit chat. They'll really struggle with level 2 leadership or permissional leadership. Okay. But also the beauty about the permissional leadership, which some people find as a downside, is that it forces you to deal with the whole person. And so we know that good leaders understand that the heart of leadership is dealing with people and working with the good, the bad, and the ugly in everyone. Because everybody in the team would have those aspects. And that's what we are hoping that Dr. Rayleigh needs to be able to remember. So I want to finish with this. What does Dr. Rayleigh need to do? And some of you have mentioned this very effectively. He needs to connect with himself before connecting with others. He needs to develop a people-oriented leadership style. He needs to practice the golden rule, and we say that. He needs to become the chief encourager of his team. We also say that he needs to practice a balance between care and candor with his team, and we say that. And even if Dr. Rayleigh, and for sure he will find himself, by the way, because usually by the time you find that team already struggling with this, there will always, in some cases, be one bad apple. It's not unusual. You get into a team and you realize that somebody's values, ambitions, purpose, and why does not in any way realign with the team. Okay. But what is important for Dr. Rayleigh to remember in this leadership context is that he needs to, if he has to, if he finds that he needs to be able to make a decision, he needs to do it quickly. Shovel the pile while it's small. That's very important for anybody in leadership, because if you don't do that, it can very quickly snowball into a very big problem. Okay. But number two, also do it calmly, never in anger. I've seen people that really shout at employees who have done something wrong. That doesn't help you, doesn't help the employee. And that's why we also insist that even if that's the case, then Dr. Rayleigh needs to do it privately. Even if you have a problem with somebody and you want to take it with that particular individual, you don't have to shout at that individual in the room with everybody else. I think the worst I've seen for me is a leader who shouted at another leader in a corridor in a building where everybody could hear that conversation. So it's important because we've said that permissional leaders also, they do it thoughtfully in a way that minimizes embarrassment or intimidation. And I know some of you have had that, maybe I've seen, hopefully not experienced, but I do pray that Dr. Rayleigh does not become one of those. So that's it from me. I think I'll hand over back to Dr. Bethel and Dr. Hezron, and we will continue, of course, with the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Newton. Thank you so much. Allow me do a projection for my colleague, Mary, even as she does the... Mary, able to see the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay. You can proceed.
Right. Apologies once again for that issue. As I was saying, when we talk about allergic rhinitis, and especially in this season, for example, which presents, it may be accompanied by nasal congestion.
Voice is breaking. Mary, your
Now,
voice
allow
is
me
breaking. Please proceed.
One of urination of exploratory to 120 milligrams. Our patients, and especially I want to maybe say our kids right now are going back to school, right? So we understand with the weather that we are in and the season, the cold season, there might be a lot of infection among them. For areas, as the loratadine and antisedating antihistamine come to alleviate the symptoms of allergic rhinitis, that is sneezing, runny nose, nasal itch and
Dr.
congestion.
Mary, I'm not sure. Mary, you're not very clear.
I'm not
Your
clear.
voice is breaking up. Yeah, your voice is breaking a bit.
How about now?
It's still breaking a bit. Maybe you can just try adjust your microphone.
Let me see. How about now?
Still the same?
Still breaking.
Yes, it's still breaking.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm trying to see because my network is very okay. I don't know if things are better. Well,
It's getting better.
Let me see.
it's getting better. So can I proceed?
Still not very clear. Maybe are you able to adjust your net? Maybe change your network from maybe Wi-Fi to data or something? Maybe it could improve. I also see the same comments from the chat.
How about now?
Not yet.
Yes, it's still breaking, Mary. Dr. Bethel and
Okay.
Dr. Heston, maybe as Mary sorts her internet connection, let
Yeah.
me try and get a few questions and then,
Okay.
yeah, Bethel, you'll just let us
Okay.
know once you're ready to come back. I see a good question from Otuya, very informative through asking which scale permissive leadership applies, a corporation, retail, wholesale, partnership size, or business, or all. I think the question I would probably ask you back, Sospita, is if it was your business and it's a retail pharmacy and you've appointed somebody as the head, you could actually be the one that is heading that particular pharmacy, and you want it to succeed. What would you apply? In my opinion, it applies. It cuts across all those. The intensity might be different because in a pharmacy you might be managing two people, but it's still important on the style of leadership that you have. And what we are saying is that if the people that you're managing in that pharmacy, the only communication that you have with them is when you're giving them instructions and when you're, for lack of a better word, shouting at them, it's unlikely that pharmacy will get to deliver. It reminds me of a story a friend of mine told me. Actually, he's a pharmacist, and he was telling me one time he was locoming in, I think, in somebody in for somebody in Gong, a fellow pharmacist. But somehow, I think one day there's a client who came in, and whatever the client wanted to buy, his conscience couldn't allow him because he said, "You have to go and see a doctor. I can't help you." But when the owner came, the owner said, "Why did you not sell?" I don't even know how the conversation went. But that same day, he was fired for not selling. Now, the point I'm trying to put across is that it doesn't matter. I think permissional leadership, and as we will talk about leadership, applies across. That's extremely important. Please feel free, Hezron and Bethwell, if there's something that you'd like to dive in. What immediate systems or processes should Dr. Rayleigh put in place to address issues of accountability, inventory management, and prevention of expiries and theft? I think on one hand, you've answered that. Definitely, Dr. Rayleigh needs to put in place systems which might not even be existing, right? We've not asked her, for example, which ERP system they're using or which whatever pharmacy program software that they're using. That could be an area that, of course, it needs to check. Are there processes for stock tech? Are there processes for vetting of the employees, the farm techs and the pharmacists who are working there? What is the security in place? Those are things that you can put, but that is more from a management perspective. I think what we also want Dr. Rayleigh to be able to build simultaneously is the leadership style that will ensure that there's clarity about what is the expectation. So I think both have to be together. By the way, you cannot build on leadership and then say that I'll trust people. No, we usually say trust but control. So in as much as you build on the leadership, yes, you have to put in place systems so that you can also make sure that even in terms of the ordering, whatever is being ordered in that pharmacy is what is only being used for that matter. So I was just agreeing with Dr. Keeley on that side. Tracy says, in a situation where management mistreats its employees, it becomes difficult to build genuine relationships with the staff as they may expect you to adopt the same behavior. Absolutely. I want to say that the organizations actually, for us in leadership, we say they are living organisms. So if you have an organization where right at the top, meaning the founders, the owners of the business, have, for example, let me say, a positional leadership approach, by the way, for sure, it becomes very difficult. I once worked in an organization where the biggest fear that people used to have is that you could be fired at any time. At any time. It didn't matter where you are. You could in as well be in a remote place trying to detail, and you could get a call and be told that, look, can you just park your car and leave and go? And true, by the way, I can tell you that such organizations in itself have very limited shelf life, right? And so it's not something that is going to be sustainable because in the end, no organization lasts without people. So to answer Tracy, I would say yes, it is difficult, but also the sad truth is that such organizations do not even last long enough. You know, you will not hear them going to 50 years. So yes, it creates a dilemma. However, if you are Dr. Rayleigh, assuming that you find yourself in such an organization, I think it's more important for you to say, how do I want to lead? And not necessarily be influenced by management. Because I think it's your leadership style. That's what we said that you're going to be writing about. And you do the best that you can where you are, as long as you are there. So that becomes very important. I I probably would be afraid to find a leader who chooses to be positional because they believe that they work in an organization that is positional, so they have to be to protect themselves. Because as it is already, then even in terms of your value-based compass as a leader, you're already conflicted. So it means you're not who you are in that particular organization. How then will you lead if you're pretending to align to the positional aspects of the organization and still want to lead? And by the way, to answer Tracy, one of the things that we did when we started this coaching, we did talk about when you're looking for a job, that you also should always find yourself in an organization where the why, the purpose aligns with who you are. So that becomes important. Dr. Bethel, Dr. Hezron, please feel free to jump in. I'm just trying to answer some of the questions that I see on the chat box.
Thank you, Newton. I think Mary is now at a better position to proceed.
Okay.
Mary?
Hi, Dr. Bethel. Hi, everyone. Again, I hope I'm audible enough.
Hi, Mary. Please proceed.
I'm audible enough now.
I think it's still breaking. But it's okay. So I'll step in and do a bit of I'll step in for my colleague Mary. Dr. Hezron, able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'll step in for my colleague Mary and do a product presentation. As you heard her introducing, one of the companies that we have under Philips Therapeutics, it's a company called Organon, and they have a range of products. One of the products that they have, it's called Irinase, which is a modified release tablet. a combination of desloratadine and pseudoephedrine, you might have interacted with it in your facilities, and it's indicated in adults and adolescents who are 12 years and older for the symptomatic treatment of seasonal allergic rhinitis when it's accompanied by nasal congestion. And being a cold season, or what we term as winter in Kenya, you are bound to see prescriptions having or conditions if patients are working in the pharmacy. As we well know, in Kenya, the patient journey, 60% of the patients begin their medical seeking journey or healthcare seeking journey at the pharmacy level. And you're bound to see patients working with allergic rhinitis, seasonal allergic rhinitis to be specific, and they are likely to have nasal congestion. This product, ironase modified release tablets, it's a very good molecule that will be able to alleviate their symptoms. And so you may be asking yourself, when you're talking about ironase, what are we talking about? As I mentioned before, you're talking about a combination of desloratadine and pseudoephedrine sulfate. Desloratadine, as we know it, is an unsedating selective H1 receptor antagonist, which is effective in treating sneezing, rhinorrhea, nasal congestion, and itching, which is associated with seasonal allergic rhinitis. On the other hand, we have pseudoephedrine sulfate, which provides a nasal decongestant effect after oral administration because of its vasoconstrictive action. And studies have been done to prove the efficaciousness of these two molecules. And combining the desloratadine and pseudoephedrine in a single formulation, that was one of the studies. It resulted in an additional antihistaminic and decongestant effect. In summary, as I mentioned, this molecule is very, very efficacious when it comes to management of seasonal allergic rhinitis that comes with nasal congestion. When you talk about the dosage of this particular molecule, quickly, we look at the dosage of this particular molecule, that is ironase tablets. It's a twice daily formulation with the added benefit of a decongestant, as I've mentioned it, for the symptomatic treatment of seasonal allergic rhinitis that is accompanied by nasal congestion. For adolescents who are 12 years or older, it's one tablet given twice daily, and can be taken with or without food. And you remember, it's non-sedating and long-acting. That has to be in our mind, even as we manage our patient. I'll repeat that. For 12 years and above is one tablet given twice daily, and it can be taken with or without food. That is ironase tablet. And I would like to ask you, in your community pharmacies, in the hospital pharmacies, I know we stocked in most pharmacies, and you can also get this in major distributors that we have in the country who supply both hospitals or major wholesalers who supply hospitals and pharmacies. You talk of the NILA, Transwide, Transchem, you'll find this particular molecule as stocked there. So please get this molecule and pass the benefits to your patients. Remember, ironase tablets are the sponsors for tonight's session. Hezron, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Libert, even for stepping up for your colleague, and also Newton for that insightful presentation. And I think this has been a very good presentation that we've been able to learn a lot. And we'll continue with the series that we have as planned. So I don't know if we have any questions regarding the presentation done by Dr. Libert. I think the last question that we have with regards to the presentation that was done by Newton was on one that came up from Solomon, who's asking, how do you deal with a team member who's consistently poor in keeping time? And this happens even after several private and team meetings on time management. There's always something that makes him late. So I don't know how you'd address that. Maybe you can guide Newton.
Yeah, that's a good question, Doc. And I would say that usually if somebody repeatedly comes in late and then despite several warnings continues. Of course, then the problem is definitely with the individual, but also it does point to maybe the leadership approach that needs to be taken. We had said earlier, you need to balance care and candor. And sometimes when somebody doesn't see the consequences of their coming in late, then they will continue doing that. So I would say that as a leader, you need to relook, because if you tell somebody that we have discussed this and you have persistently come in late in a meeting, were there consequences discussed and were those consequences actually felt by the individual? So sometimes when people actually see that, they then begin to take it seriously. I know, especially even in public institutions, we've seen this as a challenge because they feel like they can get away because of the process. You can't really fire somebody, but even then, you can definitely be able to make that clear. I'm happy, though, Dr. Hezron, that I think last week the head of public service actually, in one of the circulars that they were making, said that it's not going to be business as usual even in public hospitals. If somebody is not delivering, they're not there on time as they should be called out, and that should be noted. So I feel like it's becoming almost similar, because if that's the approach that the head of public service is taking, then I also believe in the public sector, you have to be able to comply with what is expected.
Right. Thank you so much. I think that was the last question that we had. And I think at this point, I'd just like to welcome you to give the parting shots, and then we can move on to some few closing remarks, and then we can close.
I think from my end, I'd just like to remind our distinguished colleagues that until and when you find yourself given a position, you never realize the importance of preparing. So I know some of us here are thinking that I'm still young, I've just finished my internship, or I've just gotten my first role post-internship, or I've just been promoted to head of an outpatient. So I don't think I need to do all these things that Newton is saying. But I can tell you that if you want to be able to grow, and if you want to get into that position, that you can actually be able to fulfill your ambition as a leader, then it's important for you to sharpen yourself. I think to date, and I know maybe Dr. might not be here, the CEO for Gertrude's, for me, he still remains one of the people that I look up to, really, as somebody who was very intentional and has really grown up as probably one of the few pharmacists to even head the largest pediatric referral hospital, not just in East Africa, but literally in sub-Saharan Africa. So yes, I think that's something that we need to be cognizant about. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, Newton. Libert, do you have any parting shots?
None from my end, Hezron. Just to thank every participant for setting aside time to join in the session. We'll communicate when we'll be having the next installment of the leadership series.
All right. Thank you so much, Libert. And also to your team, Mary, and also I see Dr. Charles. Thank you so much for the support that you always give on the background. So as we close this session, also saw our president was in the meeting, and she passes her greetings. I'd like to just remind you all about the call that we made for joining the PSK committees. This is the opportunity that you can take to also serve in the different positions that you have at the PSK committees. So we are having an extension of the deadline up to 29th of August. So kindly ensure that you take advantage of that extension. And tomorrow we have another webinar that will be happening, and the topic of focus will be evaluation of abdominal pain, the basics, and this will be taking place through the Knowledge Lab platform. So if you have any challenges, ensure that you reach out to us via the communications line. Our speaker will be Dr. Miriam Urithi, who's a gastroenterologist. And then also this Thursday, we'll be having another that will be covered by Dr. Bindi, and the topic is targeted progesterone intervention in reproductive disorders, bridging knowledge and patient guidance. So this is the last announcement. For those who are looking for the event on the PPB portal, It's not activated yet, so we'll let you know once the event has been listed so that you can be able to subscribe to the event. Once again, thank you to Newton, Dr. Libert, and the entire Philips team for the continuous support, and we look forward to the upcoming sessions. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.